the Jerry Lewis syndrome. In the early 70s, I was producing a TV series called The Bold Ones, Doctors. It dealt with state-of-the-art, even avant-garde medicine, perfusion, heart and kidney transplants, and cryosurgery. Liver transplants were still an early, experimental stage. I enjoyed the research and the relationships with real doctors, who were our tech advisors, and I was touched by the life and death circumstances of true stories that we dramatized. One episode was produced with NASA cooperation, using their mock-up, and involved a major problem during a spaceflight. The story idea, thoroughly developed and researched, was brought to me by a young safety consultant and automotive engineer named Byron Bloch. His fictional situation was so authentic that it mirrored an actual incident during an actual flight. Ironically, the episode was scheduled to air while the flight was still in progress, and still in jeopardy. The network, NBC, postponed the air date until the flight returned safely to Earth. Byron's story had virtually predicted the complex mishap. He was the only one who wasn't amazed at the coincidence. We utilized all kinds of actual medical equipment on the Bold Ones, supplied by eager, promotion-minded manufacturers. Eventually, there was such an accumulation of paraphernalia we couldn't use that we had to store it in a studio warehouse. Very few people knew that I had secretly loaned our heart-lung machine to UCLA, since ours was more advanced model. I learned that medical facilities, in general, simply can't afford to keep up with new designs year after year. I felt guilty that we had enough ultra-modern equipment on our soundstage to perform actual operations if we could have made the set sterile. So when Pete, the operator of the heart-lung machine, the pump technician, who was one of our advisors, told me that our machine was more advanced than his at the medical center, I made him the offer he couldn't refuse. On another occasion, from pictures, we recreated in exact detail a research lab in San Francisco, which was working on a vision substitution system. The psychologist, who was blind himself and part of the team, came down to visit our set, and I watched with anticipation as he ran his hands over every piece of equipment, every piece of furniture, every door and window, and reacted in disbelief at what we'd accomplished. The series provided us with many gratifying moments. One night, I woke Deborah up with a sudden inspiration. I'd devote an episode to muscular dystrophy and get Jerry Lewis to direct it. We'd be performing a public service, generating publicly and providing worthwhile entertainment all at once. Next day, I asked my secretary to locate Jerry Lewis, and promptly became preoccupied with the myriad of details of producing a primetime TV series. When she buzzed me in the afternoon to say he was on the line, I had no idea who he was. "Jerry Lewis," she said, a little breathless. I picked up the phone and started to introduce myself. But Jerry interrupted with a list of my credits and several specific storylines. As he intended, I was impressed and flattered. Was he interested in considering the possibility of directing an episode about muscular dystrophy? No, he said. He didn't want to consider the possibility. He'd just do it. I put a script into work, and some weeks after our initial phone conversation, I met Jerry for the first time face-to-face in his offices at Warner Brothers Studios, where he was editing his latest film. The suite was empty when I arrived, but soon I heard him charging down the hall, entourage in tow, and then he was there, confronting me and demanding to know what I was wearing on the chain around my neck. I dug into my shirt and showed him my Another Mother for Peace medallion. As I started to explain what it was, Jerry dug into his shirt and produced one of his own. It was Kismet. I provided Jerry with an office at Universal, and my crew rigged his desk chair to play Hail to the Chief when he sat down, because Chief was one of his nicknames. He had no idea how much trouble that took, and gave us no satisfaction by reacting. He took it for granted. Jerry can be differential when he talks about Dean Martin, and one day in that office I saw him reverential on the phone asking Frank Sinatra to appear on the telethon. Jerry directed the show as promised. Although he appeared to take it in stride, it proved to be difficult for him because of the delicate subject matter and the unaccustomed shooting schedule. But it turned out well. It was called In Dreams They Run, and permitted me to become involved with Muscular Dystrophy Association and its dedicated staff, who actually shipped experimental dystrophic chickens from New York to LA to help provide research authenticity. Fortunately, I was able to return them after production as agreed, still dystrophic, but alive. In 1973, Jerry asked me to produce his Labor Day telethon for MDA, and I quickly agreed to do so, persuading Art Frankel at Columbia Pictures to let me out of my contract. He must have been having a bad day. He offered to leave with me. I ran many hours of telethon tapes in an Americana hotel room, and finally suggested we move to the traditional New York show to Las Vegas, where there was ready access to great entertainers whom Jerry could cook with in person. It was a momentous, complex decision. A particular concern was that the local New York audience would take offense and withhold support. There was even talk of Jerry staging the show in New York and flying to Vegas, broadcasting live en route. I'm glad that never happened. But we did fly a plane load of celebrities from LA, and among other things, they manned the on-camera phone bank. Several co-hosted with Jerry during various hours, among them Ed McMahon, David Hartman, Marty Allen, Jan Murray, and Roy Clark, who flew to Vegas in the middle of the night between gigs and spoke touchingly of his own daughter's serious illness. New York and the nation came through. The show received more than $10 million in donations that year for the first time, and Jerry had to climb a ladder and chalk an extra number on the tote board by hand. We revised the show format extensively, creating, in effect, 21 separate but related one-hour specials with rotating co-hosts with major guest stars. Since we were abandoning the New York audience with considerable trepidation, Barbara Walters' participation was an important factor when she generously agreed to host the New York segments. In 1979, I was pleased to produce the telethon again. The 1973 show was particularly exciting and eventful. In each successive year, the telethons have been a phenomenal success, raising many millions for MDA, broadcasts on a unique international network of more than 200 TV stations, still using the basic format we devised in 1973. The telethons required a good deal of pre-production activity, some of which proved to be as compelling as the shows themselves. On one occasion, we persuaded Burt Reynolds to read a poem my friend Peter Mark Richmond had written on the birth of his first child. The spot was taped by Burt after a Tonight Show appearance. He and the crew were visibly moved. So was Jack Lemmon when he read the final words of a terminally ill ALS victim, as still photos of the man and his family appeared behind him. Jack broke down, but completed the spot. Afterwards, he asked if I wanted him to redo it. I think I'd said I'd kill him first. It aired as he had taped it. During a 30-year career, and with hundreds of production credits, some more notable than others, what's really been important to me are the pro-social themes that we explored and the friendships I developed, particularly since that distant night when I had the sudden inspiration friendships with the MDA's Bob Ross and Gary Weinberg, and with Jerry's longtime manager and pal, Joe Stable, and his wife Claudia. When I became deeply clinically depressed, more than 20 years later, the one professional accomplishment I could think of to lift my spirits was producing the telethons and working with Jerry and his kids.